Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob with Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today I have a very special review impressions of a cool knife that was part of our pass around. This is the Crispy Donut Community Chicago. That's the name of this knife. It's called a Chicago. And when I first saw it, I thought, this is interesting. I don't know about the pink with the blue, mix there. And I thought, okay, it looks different. It's worth trying out because I love different. And, we did the unboxing, it was really cool. And the guys even reached out to me because I mentioned something about this right here. But we'll talk all about that in a second and we'll get into the full review. But, as with any first full review, I always like to kind of go off with, who is the knife? Okay, so the knife is made by the Crispy Donut Community. That's the designers. I don't know all the names of the guys, but that's the community, and they have like their own YouTube channel. Go check them out. And they also have a website. Go check that out. They have lots of other cool products there as well. I definitely think it's worth a look. And then the manufacturer of this knife, I think oh man, suddenly it's slipping my mind. Is it Kubi or is it Bestech? Or is it QSP? I can't remember. I'm sorry. I'll have that down below if I know it. But it's a really cool design. And I got to tell you, when I got it, I was so pleasantly surprised. So let's get into it. So the materials of this knife is a G10 laid on top of a steel liner. And then you have the back side is a titanium frame lock. And it's a titanium mill deep pocket carry clip. So I did find out when I did my unboxing from the Crispy Donut Community that they're going to make this liner a titanium liner. So it's not going to be titanium and a steel liner. It's going to be titanium, titanium, titanium. So it'll be titanium all the way around, except for the blade, obviously. I thought that's really cool. That'll definitely lighten the blade. Even though there's some nice weight relief you can see in there, it'll actually make this knife a little lighter. When we get into the weight, whatever the weight is, it's probably going to be lighter as a result of that. The other thing that they talked about was, I mentioned that this jimping up here was a little sharp, and it is. It's very square. You can see that. It'll slice and dice. It can definitely cut some things. And they said they're going to chamfer that a little bit, or round that a little bit, soften that off, which I think is perfect. I love this concept here, but just make it a little bit less edgy there, because that's enough to, you can scrape the nails off. It's that sharp. And that was one of my things. I said, I loved everything about it. And they said they're absolutely fixing that. So those are two things that are absolutely going to be changed. And I thought that was cool. Now, the blue and the pink is interesting. I thought, what if I wanted chocolate sprinkles? And so, sure enough, they have a variant of the G10 that's going to be blue with black sprinkles. So I kind of consider that like a blue donut with chocolate sprinkles. So I assume instead of this being pink and this being pink, that's going to be black, and then this will be blue. So it'll be blue on black, which I think will look really, really sharp, by the way. I haven't seen a picture of it, but I suspect that's going to be super cool. So that is some of the design there. And this is frame lock. Everything is beautifully chamfered all the way around. There's no sharp edges here. One of my biggest things is when you have a lanyard hole like this, I'm not a fan of it, and primarily, and a lot of times it's because of my experience with a Giant Mouse. Giant Mouse does this thing, but this is always so sharp, and when it digs into my hand, it cuts in, it causes a blister, and I like to fidget with my knives. And after a while, it just is uncomfortable. This is really nicely chamfered and rounded. This is not uncomfortable. It does not dig in. It is fine. This is absolutely a great design. So I love that. So that's the other thing. This is beautifully chamfered all the way around. It's got wonderful jimping. This is the kind of jimping that I think is fantastic. And if they do this jimping up here, perfect. Absolutely perfect. If that's the jimping you're going to go for, I love this jimping. It works really great. And you got jimping on both sides. So like here you can choke up, and then if you're back here, or if you're doing something like that, I guess you can kind of, like if you're having to hold it here or something, you got some traction that it digs in. So if you're doing a push cut, like you're cutting into cardboard really heavy, or plastic, or a big piece of leather or something like that, just like if you're doing a pull cut, you want to have the traction there. It's going to be nice for the pull cut if you're cutting into something. That's really cool. I think that's really nice. All right, so that's the handle material. That's the chamfering. It's rounded all the way across. This is not sharp, doesn't dig in, no hot spots, which I thought was amazing. This right here you can choke up on. You could. It's not the most comfortable. Like I said, be careful because that cutout, but you could theoretically use it if you needed to, and the jimping here would hold you in place. But I have large hands, so large, I got plenty of room. Extra large, double extra large hands, I think you could be okay. And if you did decide to choke up a little bit, the sky's the limit. You're going to have a lot of room, right? So I think that's really cool. let's talk about the thumb stud. Thumb studs are beautiful volcanoes, so it is nice that you can get in there and do a nice flip. Now, this hand is still a little sore. I had one knife that I was reviewing that's ripped up my thumb really bad. It was a little defective kind of, I think, thumb studs, and the detent was not good. And so it's taken a couple of weeks to heal, and it's finally better, but I can tell you if I touch on that spot, it gets a little tender, but here, works just fine, reversed, and really nice. You hold on to the clip there, easy to reverse flick. So it's a very, very fidgety, very comfortable knife. And the flipper, so I can do the light switch, and it's really nice flip, right? And then I can do the push button, and it's a really nice as well. So I can push down at a little 45-degree angle, and it just deploys really nicely. And I think part of that is because here's the pivot, and this part is up enough that it's got enough leverage to get really a good actuation, a good opening, good deployment of the blade. All right. So that is the opening. That is some of the thumb studs, the flipper. That's really nice. There's no, because it's got a beautiful swedge here, which makes this a beautiful kind of cut knife. And if you don't know what a swedge is when the back of the blade, instead for being straight like this, you kind of bow it in. It's not like a full blade, but it's a pseudo blade. What that does is when you're cutting through and you've got an edge that goes down like this, right? When you're cutting through, and if you're trying to turn the blade this way, if you're trying to turn it, and if it's flat, you've got that point up there, it's pushing back. It's pushing force that way at the tip. And if you've got a swedge and it's bent back like this, so when you go down, there's no force as you're turning. So you're able to turn the blade without that force trying to push the blade back straight. So that's what a swedge allows you to do. It allows you to turn better in like cardboard, thick leather cut or plastic cuts. It allows you to navigate that knife through that material. And that's really cool. That's a beautiful swedge. I like that. It's very functional. And so this to me feels like it's a really good user knife. It has a lot of potential for that. And I'm digging that. And not only that, it's a hollow grind. It's a hollow grind, beautiful hollow grind. So it gives a nice thin edge, and it's a beautiful edge, and it's a beautifully, by the way, grounded edge. So I think this is probably a prototype, I'm guessing. I don't think this is the final release because it's on, there was a pre-order for it. So I guess this is a prototype, and I'm liking the prototype. It's a really good prototype. So that's really nice. Okay, so that's another nice design on the blade. And the blade steel, I believe, is S35. Yeah, it's S35 VN blade steel, which is a great, corrosion resistant, great steel to use all together. So there's a lot of benefit to something like that. The action is pretty darn good. I believe it's cage ceramic ball bearings because it falls like cage ceramic ball bearings. And I suspect I could probably put Skiffs in when I get one of these because guess what? I pre-ordered one with the black sprinkles, which I think is going to look sick. It's going to be awesome. So I'm super excited about that. And I think they're coming out in a couple of months, and I'm sure they'll have extras so you can order them in a couple of months when they do come out. So check Crispy Donuts, Crispy Donut Community. I'll have the link for the knife down below. Do check it out. I'm super excited about that. I believe he said also all these screws are all going to be T8s, and I think they already are. So we can check that out. And I think I showed you that in the unboxing. Yeah, all T8s all the way around. Oh, I think this is a T10. Actually, except for this one, this is a T10. Is it a T10? Yeah, it's a T10. Look at that, T10. Which is always nice. I'll take a T10 any day on a pivot screw, especially a massive pivot screw. It's also a captive pivot, which is really nice. I've noticed you may not always have you can have a non-captive pivot screw that doesn't have a screw on both ends. I don't like that. I've seen that happen a few times. Kind of uncool sometimes because it makes it really difficult to take it apart if you're trying to clean a knife out or maybe replace the washers. I had that happen on a knife recently, a very nice knife, by the way, and it kind of helps explain why the knife was such a good deal because captive pivots do cost more money. It's extra manufacturing, extra processing. It adds cost to it, right? And not having a captive pivot makes it a huge cost savings. I believe that's kind of like Sencut and Civivi. You'll see a lot of Sencut knives that don't have captive pivots, and Civivi typically have captive pivots like we. And they're all part of the same company, but I think that's where Sencut can cut a lot of cost and make it a little more cost effective. So that's nice, right? But this is a captive pivot, so I suspect, the pre-order was a great price. I think it was like a 180 or something like that. I'm sure the production full version when it comes out, you get a little break when you get a pre-order. So if you got in the pre-order, you probably got the nice discount. But if once the knife comes in and they have extra in stock, I'm sure it's going to be a little bit more. I just couldn't imagine it couldn't be because, the pre-order, you get a benefit because you're helping with the order, and then when the rest of them come in, they've got to account for costs and manufacturing, and also the rising costs. Everything goes up, So I don't know how long this was in pre-order for, how long ago it was. In 6 months, it seems like everything's gone up. In a year, it definitely has gone up. So just life lately, right? It's economy and everything that's going on. That being said, I think this is a really nice material all the way around. The frame lock's great. It's got an over travel stop. It's got a lock steel bar insert, so you've got the steel on the tang of the blade to engage. Everything lines up really well. The jimping, everything is rounded. So all of this stuff is nice. The deployment, the two deployment ways, and the cutaway for the lock bar is beautiful. Nicely chamfered. It's absolutely the kind of lock bar I want because it's comfortable. It's easy to get to. It doesn't make you finger fatigue. And let's look at the detent ball. You clear the detent ball about right there, which is really nice, and it goes all the way down. Now, when I get this, I'm going to put Skiff cage ceramic ball bearings in there. I'll probably oil it. This is not my knife, so I don't get to do anything to it. This is the pass around. I got to leave it as is in the prototype stage. I don't want to mess with it. I want everyone to have the exact same experience, right? So I'm not going to do anything with this. I've kept it at my desk. I've been flipping it, enjoying flipping it, by the way. It is really nice. I think this is one of those really cool sleeper knives that is so much fun to enjoy. Yeah, I don't often get that excited over a knife, but the ergonomics is just really, really cool. And this blade shape, I don't dig the big belly, but this works because with the compound grind, flat grind here, compound hollow grind here, beautiful swedge. I mean, this is just so functional. It's got a robust tip, so you're gonna be able to poke into fertilizer, mulch, dog food, cat food, cases of water, and you're still gonna be able to cut and slice. I mean, yeah, I'm just really, really beautifully, pleasantly surprised. And the utilization of the handle is nice. It goes all the way almost to the tip, and I don't mind this lanyard hole. I mean, it's functional, it's rounded, it looks sharp, it looks part of the aesthetic, it fits in well. It doesn't take away from the deep pocket carry clip, so you're gonna get about this deep. It's not ultra deep, it's gonna be about this deep. Could they have gone up a little higher? Could they have cut away and insert it? Because they obviously, it looks like it's laying on top, so they could have had holes on both sides, made this lefty compatible. I don't see holes on both sides, is there? No. There's just holes on this one right here to go in. It'd have been nice if you could have, just been able to switch it out for a lefty. That would have been nice, but it's a frame lock. And typically, this, unless it's a bolster lock, that's kind of it's always a little more interesting because a lot of times these pocket clips are part of that frame lock to kind of over travel stop, and it allows you to, when you're trying to reverse flick it as a left-handed, it's usually a place you can put your finger and kind of control that if you don't have a bolster. So I get it for sure. But as far as clip goes, beautiful ramp, nice, easy to get in and out. It looks short clip, very flexible. It does fit really well in the pocket. I did try that, by the way. It's a short clip. I like that. It's, again, just another nice little touch on the knife that I think is pretty insightful and pretty cool, right? So I'm digging a lot about this knife. I think it's really cool. So that's the button, the how it works, how it closes, the Loctite. Let's get into the measurements. Let's measure how much this weighs. All right, so we're in ounces. Let's see what we got. Oops, fell off. So we're at 3.92 ounces. Now, mind you, I mentioned that there's a steel liner in there right now, and they're going to make that titanium. So I could see that going down to about maybe 3.7, 3.6 ounces. You could probably lose some good weight on that, especially if they hollow it out like they did on this one. So that will be really nice. That will do some nice weight reduction. But 3.92 ounces, I'm not terribly bothered by that. I think that's fine for me. I don't think that's too heavy at all. For ratios, it's not exactly perfect because the overall knife is right at 8 inches. Yeah, it is exactly, yeah, that is exactly 8 inches on the nose. I don't know if they meant to do that, but boy, you could get closer if you tried. So that's 8 inches. From the tip to the base of the handle, you're at right at 3.5 inches. So that again is perfect, right? 3.5 inches. Now, total cutting length, we're looking at probably close to 3 and I want to say 3/8, maybe 3, yeah, and 3 3/8, about, it's definitely over 3 1/4. So 3 3/8 is the total cutting length. So that's cool. It's definitely over 3 inches, so keep that in mind. The total handle length right here, if you go from that to there, you're looking at 4 and I want to say 7/8, maybe 4, more 4 and 7/8. That's what you've got, 4 and 7/8 there. If you were to choke up a little bit, it gives you about 4.5 inches if you're okay using that as a choke up point. You know, be cautious, but you could do that, so you get about 4.5. So there you go. Let's look at the blade stock thickness, assuming it stays the same in the production. And some of you guys who are wondering, I did in fact replace the batteries. You notice it's not blinking, and you can read it. It's really easy to read. My batteries were dying. All right, so let's get in there. So we're at point, really? Is that really? Yeah, 120, 121 thousandths of an inch, 121 thousandths, 121 to 120 to 121 thousandths of an inch. So 0.12 to 0.1121 inches. So that's a pretty average, but not super thick blade stock for a 3.5 inch total blade, a 3 5/8, a 3/8 cutting length. That's not bad. That's pretty good, and that's a swedge up here, and I'm measuring here, and that measurement you're probably going to get is going to be right there, but let's just confirm that. I'm curious because that's such a nicely done swedge. Oh, I dropped my ruler. Sorry about that. I'm going to go all the way down to where that meets, that apex meets. So let me bring that back so we can get a nice view of that. Okay, so it's 0.116, so it is a little thinner. So this thickness right here is not the same thickness right here. So they come together. It's not perfectly the same, I'm gonna assume. So let's go ahead and go down here. We'll just kind of get that measurement. Yeah, so we got 0.114, 0.115, so 115 thousandths of an inch. So that's not bad. That's pretty thin. That's a good thin edge. And I love the flat grind, the hollow grind. It makes this a really thin, slicey edge, which is really, really nice. All right, so that's blade stock thickness. So let's get into is it a budget knife? No. Is it a regular knife? Yeah, it's under $300. Absolutely. At least the pre-order was. I assume we're still going to be under $300 when the knives come in and the regular production. If they have any extra inventory, they're going to sell on their website. I would imagine that this knife would probably going to be, I'm going to guess it's going to be around $200, maybe $210, especially with this. Now, I did hear they're going to make a titanium variant that's going to be titanium scale with the sprinkle milled into it, kind of like a sprinkle, like a frag, so like you have a frag here, which is really cool, but imagine a sprinkle frag kind of pattern onto the titanium scale. And I even suggested, I said, you should anodize it in purple, like a blue purple kind of thing, to kind of go along with this beautiful, blue and magenta kind of, or pink, whatever color combination. I think that would just be sick and awesome. And they said they were going to do that. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I did do a pre-order on this, and who knows, I think my pre-order, I think it was was it 150? 150 for the pre-order, but maybe I'll hit the big 3K at that time. And if I get that knife in, maybe mine will be a giveaway, one of the big giveaways, and I'll get that really fancy one. How about that? That would be cool. I would love to get that. So, but needless to say, this is the knife right here, and I think it's a really great knife just as is. To me, this feels very utilitarian, very functional, very hard use. I love the frame lock. It's a really solid frame lock. It's nicely cut out. There's no sharp edges down there. It engages well. So that makes this a really good, for the purpose, it makes it a really good EDC knife. I think for a regular base price, this is a great EDC knife. Could you hard use it? Yeah, I do. For a frame lock, it's hard use. Now, is it a fixed blade, axe hard use? No, I would never recommend a frame lock, a button lock, a liner lock, a compression lock, or even a shark lock. As great as a shark lock is, I would not recommend those for a knife that you should use a fixed blade for, or an axe. I don't think that's smart. Use the right tool for the right job if you can. Now, if you're in a situation where you need a really hard-use knife and this is all you got, this would be a great last-minute resort type of knife, because the frame lock, I think it'll hold up really well like that. I think it'll be very solid. You could do a lot of things with this. It might damage the knife, but it could get you out of the hot water, get you out of a pickle, right? It could really get you in a good situation. Ooh, careful, because that's a sharp knife. I don't want to cut myself. Could really do that. So I think it's hard use relative to what you mean hard use for a frame lock, right? I'm not going to say fixed blade, axe hard use, but absolutely hard use. Is it a collection piece? Well, it's unique. It's unique enough that some people might enjoy collecting a crispy donut design like this. So it could be a collection piece. But if you're like me, every collection piece, every piece that goes in my collection is something I use. Whether I hard use it or not, that's a different matter, right? I could have a collection piece that's really nice and it's very light use, and that's fine. But you can have a collection piece that you do hard use, right? And maybe that's the case. Maybe you buy two and keep one in the collection, one you beat up. I don't know. But yeah, it could be a collection piece. It's unique enough, it's different enough that it could be. Now, would I say this is absolutely one of those I think you should have in your collection? Collection to use, yeah, I do. But collection for long-term, safe queen, no. I don't think it's a safe queen. So that's what I mean by a collection piece. Like if I was to have a safe queen, would this fall into the realm of a safe queen? I don't think so, but I do think it would be definitely an EDC, hard use EDC type of knife. Absolutely 100%. No questions asked. I also think that this is a beautiful knife for, based on the ergonomics and feel. Let's talk about that, the ergonomics and feel. We talked a little bit about it before. Beautifully chamfered all the way around. Chamfered up here, even micro chamfering all the way around this lanyard hole, which doesn't hurt and it's very comfortable. It's rounded around the top here, so it doesn't dig in like a giant mouse lanyard hole. Everything's rounded up here, which is really nice. Rounded around the edges, all the way chamfered here, chamfered all the way up here, chamfered around here. Even the blade up here has got a nice swedge. The only things that I did have an issue with, they're going to fix. So those aren't really, this is a prototype, so I'm very cool about not dealing with that because they're going to fix that. So that's awesome, right? I love the fact this is going to be a titanium liner. It's going to take some weight relief off. So the design for me is very comfortable. This right here is a good stop to come up to, right? Now it is kind of a hard edge right there. Sometimes it'd be nice to be a little more rounded to follow the curve of the thing. That would be, now thinking about that, that might be a little nicer if that had a little more of a round. I don't want it to go up, but I definitely would like to see maybe, I don't know, maybe it goes out. So maybe it has, instead of being like parallel like it is, it goes down just a little bit. I don't know. That's up to them. They're going to do what they do. I can tell you right now, I love the flipper. The flipper works really well. I have no complaints about the flipper. I'm only saying that from an aesthetic point right here, but even then that works really nicely. So, I'm nitpicking, and that's what I do in my reviews. I get into every detail. Some of them are valid points, some of them aren't, but sometimes those valid points are valid points for some of my subscribers. And they're like, that's really important to me. And so I try to point it out. And if it's not important to you, like, to me, that's not important. I'm totally okay with that. It doesn't hinder my ability to use this knife like this at all. So I don't have an issue with it. I'm very comfortable with it like this, but some people might not like that. And for them, it could be just enough, like an OCD thing. There's some things on some knives that really bug the heck out of me. That doesn't bug anybody, but it's just my thing, right? So that's what I try to do. I try to find things like that. So as far as the design, it works really well. The flipping is great. With the flipper, the thumb stud is great. The reverse flicking with the thumb stud is great. All of this left-handed, like I said, thumb stud is great. Reverse flicking with the thumb stud is great. And the flipper with the left hand is great, okay? And the action on all of these, once you disengage the lock, is nice. It glides down really well. And I honestly think once I get this, I'm going to put Skiffs in there and a little oil, and I bet you this is going to be like just a beautiful controlled drop shot. It's almost there right now. And I'm not going to put anything in it because it's a pass around. We don't want to touch it. I mean, unless there was a rust on there, I wouldn't put any oil, do anything to it. But if it had gotten a little moisture and I would definitely put a little oil to keep it safe, right? But it's fine. It's S35VN blade steel. It's one of those really great corrosion resistant ones, so I wouldn't have to worry about that. Usually we only worry about that if it's like 154 CM or some other more corrosion type of steel, like M3V or M4 or something like that, right? So you kind of have a little, I don't know about M4, maybe 3V. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. So that's what I'm talking about here. Everything is comfortable, the thumb studs. Now, they aren't quite as volcano as some of the other ones. So, for me, I have found that if I go down real low, it's a little like like hitting a pillar. But if I'm up at the very top right there, it's really comfortable, right? So it's not as deep thumb studs like you see a lot of these guys. This has a little more of a volcano, and it's a little more gradual. It's got several ridges going all the way up, right? So this one is a little more comfortable like that. But this is also a re-out knife, and it's about twice the price. So would I expect really fancy thumb studs on a twice the price knife? Yeah, I would, absolutely. And I would want them to be more comfortable for that price. But for the value you get out of this knife, I think it's fantastic. It works great. I don't have a problem with it. So you got flipper, thumb stud, works really nice. Action is great, all of that. Opening, closing, fantastic. Now fidget factor. It doesn't have a way for me to middle finger flick it, which is fine. The flipping is outstanding. Typically, I'm not a big, flipper I like, but I'm okay if the flipper's not super great, but this is super great flipping. This is very functional flipping. And the push button works really nice, but you can still do the light switch. That works really nice. And it's a solid deployment, solid actuation. The thumb studs is the same. So the fidget factor, that gives me a good solid fidget factor. Now, I don't have a fuller hole. I don't have a, reverse, I don't have a middle finger, on the blade, kind of reverse flick kind of thing. I'm okay with that. I still have a good amount of fidget factor. So this, I'm going to give it a 6.5. I'm going to give it a 7 because the flipper and the thumb studs are done so well, both left and right-handed. So this is a 7. Sometimes I give it a little higher because I feel like the fidget factor, it's done for what you've designed a knife to do. It's really good. So that's 7 out of 10. And that's not a like a 70, like a C. That's just the maximum fidget factor. So if you're into you want a maximum fidget factor, I have some knives I rated 10. They are ridiculous. You can flipper, middle finger, thumb hole, fuller hole. You have a button, sharklet, whatever. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff, and they're uber fidgety knives, right? But sometimes you can have so much fidget factor, it's not as useful, right? But this is good, useful fidget factor, 7 out of 10. Now, out of that 7 out of 10, what's it fidgety goodness? So out of that 7 out of 10, are you 100%? Are you, do you have a solid A? Do you have a B, C, D? This is going to be right now as it is, and it's only because the thumb studs aren't just ideal for me. I'm going to give it a 95. It's a solid A. It's an A out of the fidget factor. It's not an A plus. It's an A. It's a really good fidget factor. I like it. I like it well, and it's good. I do wish it had maybe an extra ridge. It's only 2 there, so it means if I go down a little bit, I can feel it, and it does dig in. But if I get it just right, it's perfect, right? So, if you had a little extra, if you will, a little extra kind of roundedness there like this does, that gets you up there. But you're also asking for a little extra money, right? So that might not get you the same price of a knife. So I still think it's a solid A. It's good. It's outstanding. It's not a barely an A. It's not a B plus. It's an A. So fidgety goodness, A, absolutely, which means I think it's great. All right, overall final thoughts. Is it recommended? It's a prototype, right? I understand it's a prototype. I understand things are going to change. But based on the prototype and what they said they're going to change, I'm going to give this an absolutely recommended knife. Now, I did pre-order it. I'm waiting for it to come in. I think it's going to be a couple of months. And I may do a full production review of it at that point. But this is a prototype early release kind of review, and I absolutely think it's recommended. If you can get in on the pre-order, if there's like some special pre-order somehow, like when we had a live show after I did my first unboxing, they opened a small pre-order, which was really cool. If they do that again and you're somewhere there where you can get on it, get on it, get on it, get on it. Absolutely, I think you should, because I think it's great. But that being said, I also think that, it's recommended, and I think you would be more than happy to get this knife. So that's my final thoughts. I'm looking forward to the production one. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I can't wait to look at that a little more in depth and experience that knife. So we will do that when we get it. But hey, thanks so much for watching today. If you found this content fun, interesting, worthwhile, entertaining, or informative, would you please consider hitting the like button down below? And if you've already hit the like button, would you mind and maybe possibly consider hitting the subscribe button? Subscribing and liking the videos really helps out my channel. Allows me to produce more content, do more things, and ultimately do more things for you guys. I really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you. And if you've done all that, maybe consider hitting the notification button so you can be notified of future content. And if you haven't already, check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Again, that's on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. Hey, thanks so much for watching today. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.